Hello everyone, welcome to our learning series of how to use Unreal Engine for architectural visualization. This is the second part of our user interface designer section. In this video we're going to start developing a widget slide design by creating a bunch of widgets and switch between them. From our previous video we have learned how to create a basic widget buttons to switch between the three canopy options. But now let's create a more enhanced look of our widget for our project example here. So let's start by creating a HUD class, and the HUD class is representing the slides widgets that will be attached to this project. So I'm gonna right click and choose a blueprint class and type in the search button here HUD, and then select, and let's name this Arch-viz HUD, and go to the world setting and the HUD class and choose this HUD class. Okay, so I've created a widget folder, and inside this folder I've imported this bunch of images that I will also attach it in the link in the description below. Those images, basically we're gonna use them in the slide, and you can use your own images that you're gonna design, but this is just for the demonstration purpose. So let's start by creating our first widget, and let's name it user interface and widget. Let's call it main. Let's call it this way, main menu. Okay, and let's double click it. So basically this is gonna be our first widget that will represent, for example, your company logo, or however you wanna show this. So I have just a gray color image. I'm gonna drag it inside my canvas here. And I want this image to fill the whole thing, so I'm just gonna choose from the anchor here the full size, and this is basically gonna distribute our anchor on the corners. And what I'm gonna do is just zero all the offsets on our sets of the offset of the anchor here. So let's start to create by a button and put it in the middle. And we need to assign to this button, this image, the start button. So I'm just gonna type here start button. Now let's take this one. Let's align it to be in the middle by using the anchor. Just put it there, and then just size it, the content. Sorry about that. So I'm just gonna put it here to be in the middle. Almost in the middle. Okay, so this is basically what we should see when we launch our project as our first slide, and when we press on this button we should move to the next slide. So let's start to create some properties of this button. So I don't want anything to be added to the current button, so I'm just gonna browse the image and assign it on the hovered class and also on the press class. And I'm just gonna compile this. Okay, so this is our first widget slide. We're gonna create the next one, user interface, and let's name this, for example, selection menu. Okay, so in this menu we're gonna drop a background image that we created in Photoshop. We took a render from our project example. And then I'm gonna put this also for full screen and zero all the offsets. Okay, so in this slide I'm gonna add a bunch of buttons that when we move to this slide they're gonna come from appear from the upper part of the slide, and basically this is gonna be a small animation that we're gonna add to the buttons. So let's create our first button here. Let's name this, for example, we're gonna need to add a text to it. We're gonna create this and name it, let's say, for example, this is the option, as it's gonna be the last one in the list. So basically this is gonna be the option of our resolution, that when the player or the previewer of this project, when we start to preview, if you want to change the resolution, it's gonna be through this menu. So I'm just gonna create this button and then add an image. to this one. Let's just okay, so it's just a basic frame. Give it a better look. So we're gonna duplicate this one also, copy and paste it. I use the anchor here to just help me align it, and it's the same height position by just moving it here, and then use the upper offset and the bottom offset. Okay, so I just needed a little bit of scale up. It's okay to have a little bit of a manual overdo. Then you can go back and align it properly. So and the option with this one is gonna be let's say for example this is gonna be the renders. If we're gonna add some renders to our project, if we open this, he is gonna go to the render slide also, and again copy and paste. Let's put it here and name this. Let's choose the text first. Let's say for example this is the cinematic video that we have created. So when we press on this button, it will run the cinematic video on the video slide. Okay, so let's put another one. That's gonna be the last one. Hopefully it's gonna be the copy, paste, and put it here also. And name this, choosing text first, the walkthrough. So this is gonna be the real time. The slide's gonna basically move us to the walkthrough slide, where we're gonna have also a bunch of widgets controllers, which gonna be some of them is gonna be like the variant manager and a point of interest and a camera to take some shots. Okay, so basically this is just a laydown for the buttons on the second slide. Let's add another button on the bottom. That's going to be the back button. So in case, for example, if we gonna go back for the previous slide, so we're gonna call this the back. Okay, so let's compile this now and let's create our animation for the buttons. So I'm just gonna name a specific animation name. Let's call it slide from above, from up. Okay, and go for our timeline. Let's select our buttons. So hit Control, select all the buttons and go down here. Let's go to the translation. Let's create a keyframe here. Sorry, we're gonna move them first up, then create a keyframe, and then we're gonna move our time slider just on this part, 0.25, and then let's put it for example at 150, or maybe just 250, and hit a key. Okay, so if we move our time now slide, we can see that the buttons are coming from above, and this is just a basic animation that will appear once the slide opens. Okay, so now all that is left just to create the characteristic of each button once it's pressed or hovered. So I'm just gonna browse for the image and select it also and the hovered section. But for this one, we can actually change the color. So once we hover on top of the image, the color can change actually, instead of just pressing on inherit. So I'm just gonna darken the image a little bit and choose the same image also once it's pressed, and darken a little bit once it's pressed. Just do the same thing for the other one and darken a little bit. So we can actually, right now what I'm doing is just the values will be different from each one, but later on, if we're gonna do this properly, we're gonna just assign the same color for each one. So again, so now the buttons are ready, and we're just gonna need to assign the blueprints later on for each one. Okay, so this is basically slide number 2, where we have our the options of our experience. Okay, so let's start by building up our basic presentation of the widget. So I'm just gonna compile this, and then we want to see how this is gonna look like. So now, to have our widget appear in our presentation, I'm just gonna create an actor, name this widget slide. Okay, and then I'm just gonna event graph it, and when the event begin play, let's create a widget. This is basically gonna be the first one, which is the main menu. Okay, and then just add to viewport and compile this, and don't forget to drop this in our C. Okay, so now we can just have a basic look of this. So instead of play, I'm just gonna create a standalone game, as it's gonna show us how this is gonna look like once we launch up our presentation. So once it's launched, let's give it a second. Okay, so this is now our basic interface that's gonna appear, and as you can see, now we have our logo that represents the basic button that will move us to the second slide. But here we can see also a message that the light need to be built, and this is gonna always happen once we change anything in our scene. So to get rid of this, as you can see here, it says that you can disable all screen messages. If we could put this in our blueprint, so I'm just gonna open our blueprint here. I'm just gonna add an event here. Let's say, for example, we want to have another begin play, so I'm gonna just create a sequence, and this is basically just to get benefit from the event play and create another one. So I'm just gonna drag this one here. Sorry. Okay, so we're gonna call this node execute console command. I'm just gonna write console, and we're gonna write here on the command disable all screen messages. Okay, and we're gonna compile this, and then let's test this and launch the presentation game on the presentation for our project. Okay, let's give it a second. So now, as you can see, the message is heading from our presentation. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do now is that we're gonna create an event graph for this button. Once we press it, we want to see the next slide. So I'm gonna go down here and click on clicked event, and then I'm gonna drag from this a node called remove from parent. It's gonna be here. Okay, and then so this is basically gonna hide our slide, and I'm gonna create let's say, for example, second, create a widget, sorry, and this is gonna be basically our selection menu. So this is our selection menu, and also add, sorry, to viewport, and don't forget to get player controller over here, and this should do it. So we're gonna compile this, and let's start and see. Once we have our widget appear, once we press it, we should see the second slide. Okay, so when we press it, you can see that we have moved to our second slide. Now the last thing we're gonna do is to build the back button effect that we should be able to go back to the main widget that we have created. So the same thing also, we're gonna also choose the button and hover to the click it, and again just drag from this and remove from parent, and then create a widget. This is gonna be our main menu, and then again add to viewport and get the player controller. Compile this. Let's start and test this one. Okay, so once we have this set up, now we understand how to basically assign functions. So I'm just gonna press this. If I head back, I should go back to the main menu. So this is just what we have achieved through assigning an event graph or a clicked function for these buttons. So thank you very much, and see you in the next video.